So I want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing, because I think a lot of these issues we're talking about, like the broken system, the broken politics, the broken media, I think a lot can be fixed with education. I know that sounds like a fun catch-all, but I think the root of most of our problems is if, look, you don't educate your populace, you don't give people access to good education, things start to fritz, and it's tough to expect people to think logically when they're both poor and uneducated, right? And that's frustrating.
Well, I'm gonna challenge that statement a little bit. I think that's kind of true, but I also think there's some. I mean, the data shows that people are generally irrational, right? It's our default.
Oh yeah,
you can be extremely educated. I found some very smart, educated people. People just get into their zones, and it shuts off, and they just shut down and shut off. So
there's a lot of dumb, smart people.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people, and I think so.
Sadly, most of them go to Duke University.
So if I can, I would, and I put these things in 3 different buckets, right? The power to change comes with protests, because you have to fight back in order to make things happen. The protest doesn't matter until you actually have policy. So that has to be tied to policy, but you also can't sustain policy, and protest won't matter unless you actually have power. Right. And so I think communities have to join together to get more power. It comes with education, because you need education as a basis layer. So education has to be equitable, and there needs to be opportunities. And I can have a whole. So I agree with you that education is very important. I just have a different reason for it. I don't think people are necessarily convinced because they have education. Or necessarily
you make a good point. Just because we educate people doesn't mean they're going to be rational or not.
No, I mean what happens is,
you're right.
Right. I mean people tend to be the greatest indicator of someone voting for that last person in office who clearly was racist or at least using racist propaganda and doing things as divisive as possible, saying misogynistic things. So you pick your reasons for not liking him. There's a whole lot of reasons not to like him. But the single biggest indicator was people living in non-diverse communities. That was it. So it's harder to hate up close, right? So
my gosh, yes.
Right. So it's easy to believe stereotypes, but when you actually get to know people, it's a lot harder. So we have to figure out how do we get more opportunities to connect people? How do we connect rural communities and urban communities in a way that's meaningful? How do we expand access to infrastructure in terms of not only hopefully having high-speed rail that connects us in different ways, but also infrastructure for the 21st century, building out Wi-Fi and making sure that folks have the broadband support in all their communities. Like that, I think doing that thing and connecting people more, the more people can be isolated, you can give them all the education in the world. The more people are isolated and they're in their corners, the harder it is.
I was working in Brooklyn at a lower income school, and a lot of the kids did not seem to have to your point, the why they're in school. They're learning math, but why? What is this for? Just so I can get an A on a test? For what? To go to college? That seems unattainable. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's
very important. You're right. I mean, there's not a practical application of what does this matter in my life?
So we started doing business competitions in these schools, or bringing the kids to the office. And it was like Shark Tank Light, where the kids would create a new shoe for Nike or something like that. And the biggest thing we found was that the kids are it changed their trajectory in their mind. They're like, well, this is why math matters, because when LeBron James or Steph Curry, whoever, Nicki Minaj is wearing those shoes or doing her music video, she's getting paid for that. Someone's running the numbers. Someone's designing the set. There's all these different things. But I haven't figured out, our org is growing. It's great. I do think this is a core to what's missing in education, that active, relevant learning piece. But I don't know how to do it at scale. So I'm curious your thoughts on how to get, I know you've done a lot of work with entities and businesses, but how to get the kids that need this access. And frankly, if they had the access to, a direct path to Nike, would be kicking ass at that firm. They would kill to have these kids' ideas in many ways, but aren't getting it. And it starts with Wi-Fi we're talking about, but things you've seen, and maybe even tell about some of the work you're doing to kind of break those barriers. I think it's interesting.
At scale is really tough. it's going to be local solutions in areas because you have to be proximate to the area or to the problem to really have a long-term impact. I don't have the answer to be scalable. But I do know that there are some things that have to happen for it to work. They're the things you're talking about, the connecting learning to things that kids understand and can see and touch. Really providing education that is not just about learning abstract points in history or pure memorization, which I think is almost a waste of our time. I don't think that's what should be done. I do think there needs to be a lot more on how do we teach them things that they can learn, like editing, how to code.
Finance,
then beyond that, but before you get to that, critical thinking, put them in situations in a way that is real and applicable, like you did. Like if you had a Shark Tank thing and you made it apply, and they got a chance to do that, the folks got a chance to actually do internships. I found if we can get more opportunities for experiential experiences where people can actually go and have jobs and work with entrepreneurs, people in corporate America, and you have kids that normally wouldn't see that, they get that opportunity. Those things change perspectives. I mean, it starts with people changing perspectives about what's possible, and it has to be done at the local level. Like scaling it, I don't know fully. I just have an idea of what has to happen at local levels.
One of my biggest fears right now is the world is changing faster than it ever has. The world's always been changing, but now we're seeing that change accelerate. And
absolutely,
you're starting to see game-changing technologies, and they're going to hit us faster. So I think the blockchain is one like massive example. I think deep fakes, I think 3D printing. There's some things that are going to start accelerating and changing everything. And obviously the internet has done its number on us.
Yep, it already has changed how we think.
Oh yeah, we're like, it's always going that way. And these kids are growing up addicted to phones, and adults are addicted to phones too. It's not the kids' fault. But my fear is, so when this happens, there's a massive opportunity. We're going to have a new market, a new economy, like all these things are going to change really fast. But if it's still the way we are now, you're going to have the wealthy, the elite, the powerful, the uber educated are going to have access to these new changes on the frontier. And who gets left behind? The marginalized communities color, by the numbers across the board. And so my fear, the example is like, blockchain and Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies are going to democratize finance and do all these great things. You're right. But there's going to be the people that actually could use the democratization, not get access to them. Now, to me, the simplest way to solve that is actually your point, like, let's get Wi-Fi everywhere. So like the kid is coming from a rough, like the worst background ever. Like theoretically, he or she is like ability to at least have access, hypothetically, to the treasures of the internet and some of these crazy ideas that are changing everything. But that's obviously oversimplification, not the only thing that needs to happen. But thoughts on how we can get the communities that need it would benefit most from it into crypto, NFTs, like some of these cutting edge tech, whatever they may be.
When I hear all of these politicians, and I hear them on the left and the right, they focus on returning to things as they were, right? Make America great again. There's been
when you're conservative, when you're rich, you got something to conserve, right?
Yeah. But there's other people that are conserving a past where America was the only dominant superpower, where, if it was just enough to be a white man and that's all you needed to be, and you can hang on to just that feeling. Or like we had just everything was heavy manufacturing. That world's not coming back. It's never coming back. So we can't recreate the past, but we can build a better future, as you say. And so our policies need to be thinking about what's coming next. Like you really talked about a lot of it, but we know I think the biggest both threat and opportunity is artificial intelligence. It's because that is and is going to rapidly change the landscape of work. And so, the question has to be, what is our policy going to be to deal with this and to make sure that we are doing everything possible to get our citizens ready for that economy. And that has to be our approach. Our approach can't be we're going to do what we've done before, because AI and technology are moving so fast that a whole bunch of people will be displaced. I'm hopeful that folks will transition into new jobs that happened in the Industrial Revolution. But what people don't talk about is there was a 20 or 30 year period where people were massively displaced, and it was a horrible time. And so people never talk about. They talk about what happened after we went through that. They don't.
They talk about the benefits.
Right. They talk about the benefits. They don't talk about the struggle to get to the benefits. They don't talk about the fact that when we had all these robber barons, that we were exploiting kids, and that people were working like 15 hours a day, and people were dying all the time on the job. And no one talks about that part, right? But what we had to do to make it better is we obviously had unions. We had workers fight back. We had child labor laws.
Labor Day became a holiday because of massive strikes. I think a dozen people died.
Yeah, and we created an economy that began to address these concerns. It took us a long time to do it. We can't take that long with technology because it's going to move so much faster. And so we have to be more nimble. So it's not going to. So we have to have. And this is very difficult because often you have people in government that have no idea about technology. And so they're creating policies. They have no idea how to actually move it forward. And then you got a lot of technologists that some of them are very well-meaning. A lot of them just care about becoming very, very rich, right? And nothing wrong with getting rich. I believe in capitalism, but I believe in having a system that works for people. So why I'm in entrepreneurship right now, and it's not to say I wouldn't get back into running for public office at some point, is that I believe it's so hard to really have that impact right now because people's brains are just so shut off right now. I have a lot of people that I can work with. I can say the same thing that I'm saying to you right now. As long as if I don't say I'm a Democrat, I'm working in business, people are all for it. But there's no real right. So my goal is to really expand where I can with entrepreneurship. So our platform, Disrupt Art, is looking to use art that is aimed towards social impact. So we want to empower people that are in marginalized communities to be. They're going to be the feature of the platform. Part of the platform is teaching these artists to become better entrepreneurs. And we also want partnerships to promote art that is about social impact art. An example, one of the artists that's going to come up on our platform, his name is David Bianchi. He's a big, well-known actor. He's pretty well-known actor, spoken word artist. And he had an NFT about George Floyd and gave all the money to that. And I think he made they made like $20,000. I mean, there's a way to connect and empower the community. We want to use the platform to do that because the technology is not going anywhere. There are people that, I know you're not one of those people that say like, well, we just shouldn't do these things. I hear you, but artificial intelligence is coming. Blockchain is here. It's here. So the question is, how are we going to use it in a way that empowers people? So, I mean, my job, I think, is to use my platform and use the power to help and empower more people. That's what we are hoping distinguishes Disrupt Art. It's disruptart.io from other platforms. They're about just selling, but we want to actually create a platform that will have events and accelerators that are helping these artists, but also eventually entrepreneurs and others use the power of technology to help transform society.